All right. Hello, everybody who join us today for a podcast on a podcast called, well, it's in Hebrew, but the podcast is, I haven't told about this deal in the States. And today we are on an interview with David Hansen, Dave, we are partners, and it's about buying a land, develop it, and sell it to a national builder mostly. We're gonna tweak the niche and talk about what's specific in that area. You have a strategy that I've learned from you actually. That is very I think smart and creative, and it's based on your experience most. So we're gonna dive in that today. But before we dive in, just if you can introduce who are you, David Hansen, and what is your experience in the land development?
Good evening to you all. It's good afternoon here. My name is David Hansen. I'm a civil engineer and a land planner. I have been working in, and I didn't know this word until recently with Rafi, the land space, for about 35 years. I started in 1988, working as an entry-level civil engineer, and I worked my way up through the ranks until I was running a team of 5 engineers and 8 drafters, and we were doing large subdivision projects, commercial projects in the Washington D.C. area. I lived in Northern Virginia in Loudoun County. And I left that in 2004 to go out on my own as an owner's representative, basically doing what I was doing before. I was finding deals, I was entitling deals, and then actually developing them. So, I've been doing this for 35 plus years now. And Rafi and I partnered together almost a year ago now on a project in South Carolina, and things are going extremely well. We hope to settle a few things this year, if not early next year, and then parlay that into bigger and better things. And to everyone listening, I will tell you all, I know most of you are Israelis listening, myself and this country are behind you all.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I wanna ask you a few questions about this niche, about entitlement, because I'm not sure everybody, we can't assume that everybody knows what is entitlement. And
yes.
So let's try to simplify it. And what is entitlement first? Okay.
Well, there, as you know, Rafi, now there are several degrees of entitlement. The land can come with an underlying entitlement or zoning as it sits today. That zoning could allow you to build, it could be an R1 zoning that allows you 1 unit per acre. It could be R3 that allows you a different number of units per acre. Then there's another form of entitlement, which is rezoning, where you take that same piece of property and request better, more dense zoning. From that point, there are, again, different levels of entitlement: a preliminary plan, a final site plan, a final plat. Those are all different and individual points in the entitlement graph.
Yeah, if we replace the word entitlement, because in Hebrew, I don't think there is a word for that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but entitlement
probably not.
Yeah. And so it's plans, right? It's like approved plans, right? There is plans where there is a depth in plan. For example, at the first it's like a sketch approved, right? Like the first page, yes. Like the sketch and the initial plan is approved. Then you have more in-depth plans. So every time you reach out to a plan that is being approved, it's another stage in the timeline, right? Just to make
It's you know what, Robbie? It's similar to I would say almost any business. You have your business plan, then you have your practical operations within your business plan. In this particular niche or space, there are there's an initial vision, which is that first sketch that shows you possibly what you can do. And in many jurisdictions now will allow you to, they'll review your sketch plan in a tertiary fashion, just a quick cursory review. They'll give you some comments. They'll mention some things to you. And then that's followed up with a preliminary plan, which is a more detailed engineered version of your sketch. And then that's followed with a construction plan, which is a very detailed version of your initial sketch and preliminary plan that you can actually hand off to a contractor who could build the infrastructure from it. And then the last stage would be your final plat, which is what actually creates the individual lots that homes or a commercial building would be constructed on.
Good. So, okay, there is a word for that in Hebrew for sure. I'm not sure it's the same, but anyway, so in America, when you have a land, right, it can be rural. What is a rural land? It's a term
in the U.S., what would be considered rural would be, so we have, and again, I think this is probably true in almost every country. You have urban inside the city. You have suburban, which is those rings that follow just outside of the urban core. Is suburban, where you have varying degrees of density of housing. And it gets less and less dense as it radiates out. And then outside of the suburban areas, you're going to have your rural areas. They are, generally would have been thought of as farming communities, or mountainous, or heavily treed. And as the cities grew, then these rings of lightly rural would be absorbed first, and then out into the extremely rural, which you're going to get more open space, far less dense. But that's essentially the way you'll see it around just about any city or town. You see the rings of development as they radiate out.
Okay. And when you have a land, let's say, it can be zoned agriculture, right? And it can be zoned and it can be zoned residential. And there is a few levels of density for that can be for that land. It can be zoned for but for a specific level of density, right? But very important, because I think it's a difference between countries in the world. Usually when you say rural, it can be agriculture, right? It can be zone agriculture. But in America, you can have it rural but zone residential with a high density.
Yeah, one of the big zonings, for the rural is AR, which is agricultural, residential, and then usually nomenclature after that, a 1 or a 2, that denote the allowed density within those zoning designations.
Yeah, so it can be rural and be high density zone.
No, unlikely
because because it's outside of the city, right?
Right, outside of where your high density is going to be where public facilities exist. Yeah. And that's always going to be closer to the cities, closer to the suburban areas. And now there may be what happens in some areas, in some jurisdictions, is you have 2 small towns that are close together, and they'll slowly grow together. And so that band that connects them will be a little more dense than some of the radiating bands out that are much more rural and removed from the public utilities and services. Those are the things. Remember, you and I looking for things going, one of our big things was we want to find it's okay to be rural as long as there's reasonable access to, facilities and services.
Yeah.
People will willingly drive 5 miles. Will they willingly drive 10 or 15 miles?
Yeah. So they want to see they want to see services around it in order to live there.
Or you want to find something where you could develop out in a rural area, build everything, including the services, create your own, almost creating your own small village or town.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say services, you're meaning, for the audience, is it like services like a commercial around it, or you're talking about utilities?
No, commercial.
Commercial.
Okay. No one wants to, in the States, well, people will, no one really wants to select a place where you have to drive 20 miles to the grocery store or 20 miles for just personal services, get a haircut, for the ladies, get their nails done. There's, everyone wants to be in reasonable proximity to that. It's okay to live in a rural setting, but even in that rural setting, they want to be within 10 miles of things to make their life more comfortable.
Okay. So let's talk about so I will ask something else. So you can buy land. The option is you can buy land that has let's say residential or commercial development potential, buy the land, right? Do the entitlements, which is the plant, right? And push dirt, which is the infrastructure, put the infrastructure and then build. You can do all the way, right?
Yes.
But in your opinion, there's a different niche, right? That you don't have to do all the way. You don't have to, right, buy a land and do all the work on, including building the house. You can. What is the specific niche?
There are places to jump off anywhere in there, Rafi. You could option the land, and depending on the market and the overall economic market, you could tie up a piece of land under contract, get a preliminary plan approved, and sell that. You could exit at that point to maybe even to someone like you and I, who would then do the next couple of steps. You can contract the land, do all of the preliminary work up till the point where a jurisdiction gives you a land disturbance permit, and you can exit at that point to either another developer or to a self-developing builder. The third point would be to take it all the way through that process and actually develop the land. Actually, cause the infrastructure to be installed, and then sell finished lots to the builders. And then in the case of the big national builders here, your largest national builders that, all the way down the food chain, in the top 25 or top 30 builders in the country, they will actually do all the steps. They have in-house land acquisition. They have in-house land development and entitlement group, an engineering group that runs all of that. Yeah. They have an in-house group that manages the construction, and then they pass everything on internally to the home building side.
Yeah, it's 2 departments. They have like 2 departments that,
right, or three. Some have an acquisitions.
Yeah.
Then they have an in-between group that manages the entitlements and the land development, and then they have the home building side. Yeah.
Okay. We will get back to the national builders in a few minutes. What I want to because I'm building it, of course I'm building it up, but you can buy a land that has potential with 10, 12 lots, right? And you can do 300, or you can do even 1,700, right?
Yep.
Big projects. And what is the difference? Is there any different doing that? Why not to start? Why to start?
Yes
10?
and no.
Why
yes
you
and
go
no.
bigger?
So you know, Ravi, the one thing I always say is it's just as much brain damage to do 30 lots as it is to do 300.
Yeah.
So it's the same amount of work in a 10 lot deal as there is in a 50 lot deal, as there is in a 100 lot deal. There's more attention to detail, most likely, in the smaller deals because they're smaller and your margins are very close, much closer. So one mistake can cost you a lot in a smaller deal, whereas a mistake in a larger deal, you're spreading it over so many more lots that the chances of something being catastrophic are minimized greatly. But the amount of effort that it takes to acquire and entitle, or whatever the word we'd like to use is, and then dispose of it, whether it be to a builder or another developer, is the process is the same in all of them.
Okay. And so let's talk about the national builders, right? Because usually, I will go back in my head for a second. So usually in real estate, right? Because it's hard for us as investors to jump too big, right? It seems like it's riskier, right? Like in single family, where you do a few deals a year, then you scale that. Or when you go to multifamily, you will do 4, then you do 8, then you will do 20, and etc. Right? Here, the buyers, of course, at the end of the process will be different. Here, when you go to the national builders, there is a minimum of lots that they will work on, of, let's say, finished lots or potential minimum of lots. How many lots the national builders, and then say, who are those national builders? Okay,
and the answer, to begin with, the answer to your question is maybe there's a minimum.
Okay.
Imagine this: you stumble on a piece that can be subdivided into 5 lots.
Mm-hmm.
It's got perfect amount of road frontage. It's a very easy division. And D.R. Horton is building a subdivision directly across the street.
D.R. Horton is one of the national builders.
They're the biggest builder in the United States.
Yes.
They are the #1 home builder in the United States. If they are building right across the street, or, maybe 1,000 feet away, they will buy those 5 lots from you because they already have all of their infrastructure in place to do it. They probably, if they're doing a bigger project, they probably have a model home. So out of that model home, they can sell those 5 lots. So in that case, they would rather buy those 5 lots from you than have you sell them to another builder, because then another builder is taking away the potential that they have out of their bigger project.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's why I always tell people, there's always an opportunity. Never discount the potential if there's somebody right next door.
Yeah.
That said, if you were speaking with the builders, their first reaction, the national builders, whether it's D.R. Horton, Pulte, Lennar, Richmond American, those are probably the top 4, and I can rattle off additional ones. But if you're speaking with one of their land acquisition guys, he's going to tell you 50 lots.
Okay. Who are those national builders? why it's so, why they're all the fame around it? Why it's so important to know those? Why I'm asking you about those.
The big national, because the big well, to me, and when we're looking at a deal, or when I'm looking at a deal, the first thing I do is look around that area and see who's building and selling. And to give you a great example, right now I'm looking at a project for somebody in just outside Scranton, Pennsylvania. There are no builders. I mean, there's local builders. There are no national builders there. And the deal, I found a regional guy who will take down the lots for this group, and that's fine. But it wouldn't be a deal that I would do, or that I would recommend you and I do, because there's not enough reason to be there.
Yeah.
So one of the things I look at is who's there, who's building there, are they nationally recognized? It doesn't matter whether they're in the top 5; they could be in the top 25. But them being in a particular jurisdiction or area or market says there's enough activity in that market for them to be viable there.
So they have all the, how do you say, the infrastructure.
They have their internal infrastructure in place. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that, when I did the research at the beginning, and we've talked about it also at the beginning, the national builders are institutional. So one of the things, they can't stop buying land. No matter what. And I saw, and I have, and I've seen research, and I saw the amount of units they've been doing in the last recession. They were still building during
the recession. They're machines, and they have to feed the machine, period.
Yeah, so they can't stop. They will not stop, no matter what.
They'll slow down. They will slow down. They'll renegotiate to a degree on deals with people. But the big nationals, and again, this goes back to market and not global market, but a specific market. As long as there is a reason for them to be in that market, they will work their way through a deal with the developer or themselves. Even if it slows down, they will continue to build throughout any market downturn.
Yeah, and they have the cash. They're institutional.
They do. Yeah,
they have the cash to buy, and they need to feed the machine and they already have plans for next year and 2 years from now and 3 years from now. They have a target of amounts of units they need to build.
Right. Exactly.
So they gotta meet that, and that's why I kind of tell the story here, because I think it's a very crucial for that.
It is. Well, and one of the things that you found out looking back at the 2008 crash and the recessional time that followed is we went for, what happened was the builders kept building, but very few people were going through the process of contracting land, entitling it. So, and then by connection there, creating this backlog of permitted lots. And what happened is we got in a massive backlog to the point where even from 2018 to 2022, while the market was raging, we still didn't catch up. We are still probably, 5 million units behind nationwide?
Yeah, there is a demand for
It's a big number.
5 million new houses in this. I don't know if new houses, but
just to keep up with population.
Yeah. So when I found out before I even met you, and I said that's really something very important, because it's a game of supply and demand. There is not another supply, and there is a lot of demand. And if the national builders keep looking to buy, right, and develop and build houses, I said I want to be their supplier. I said I I want to be there because they will keep buying. And one of the things I've seen around with investors, a lot of them, what they do, they buy land and they do the whole process, even though they build by themselves one by one, right? They bring custom home builders and they buy and they build and build. And I say, why? For me, again, I'm not against it, but for me, I say, I don't want to do that because there is somebody who is better than me doing it, right? And he needs more product. He needs more land ready for building. So that's a kind of the niche, and we will talk about this niche in a second, how to structure it. But that's one of the things that I saw as a game changer in the space. So what are the things that is important for the national builders as a buyers? What they are looking for?
The same, kind of, I'll relate back to the couple of things that we mentioned earlier that, again, that you and I have been through. They want to be, first off, they want to provide a product that the population wants. So it needs to be in a location that is satisfying that need. And again, it could be urban, suburban, rural, as long as you have within a reasonable distance access to services and facilities. Again, there are people that love living off the grid, that love living out in the middle of nowhere, but I would say the majority of us want to be near the services. Some of us, like I'm one of the kind, I would prefer to live in the middle of the city where I could walk to everything. My family and I, we've lived in a city, we've lived in a suburb, and for about 8 years we lived rural. I mean, we lived in a 1850s log cabin out in the country, but it was still only about 5 miles from a city that we could get to go to the grocery store and things. So I was never fully committed to living so far out that I couldn't get back to things, but I understand the logic behind it. So the national builders are the same way. One, they are a machine. So they need a massive product. So it has to be where a mass of people are looking. So they're not going to look in a very rural, isolated area. They're going to want to be within a certain distance of a metropolis or a city or something that offers services. And they're also, I mean, at this, currently the southeastern part of the U.S. is growing by leaps and bounds, but that's not to discount areas, in the central part of the country, in cities where things are still thriving.
Yeah. Okay. They're also looking for water and sewer.
Yes.
So we've seen septics and etc. So how do the national builders look at that?
Well, it depends. So at a bare minimum, what they would prefer is always going to be public water. Now, some will, depending on, again, in the areas like where we moved from around Washington, D.C., where it was rural. But again, I mean, we were in the country. I was 5 minutes from a city. And we were on well and septic. And the builders there, because, there is a demand for larger lots with much larger houses, $1 million homes on a 2 or 3 acre lot. And there is enough demand there that the builders will go against their norm. And if you brought them, a 50 to 100 lot subdivision in a rural area like that, close to, close to Washington, D.C., they'll do it. And they understand the differences and difficulties that come with well and septic, and they accept that. But their preference off the bat would be a public sewer connection, a water meter out front, within 50 feet of the house, and build from that.
Okay. And so if I want to understand if a national builder will buy a land in the area that I'm looking for, should I call him? How do I know that there will be an interest? How do I verify that?
Well, yeah, you're going to laugh. I look on Zillow and I see who's building there. It's the easiest. You know what? You can actually Google new homes. If you Google and go into an area, a jurisdiction, and just Google new homes, the new homes guide, and all the builders will pop up that are building in that general area. And from that, you can go into their individual websites and select the location and see how close they are, how far they are from a particular property you might be looking at. And, it's still no guarantee, but it is the easiest way to discern whether or not they're even in the area, or whether or not they, if they're in the area, they will definitely be interested at least to look.
Okay. A question, and I see all the questions. I see the question on the chat, so I will ignore it for a second, but keep writing the question. So why the builders needs us, right? Why do I need, if I find a land, it's for sale, and there is a national builder, they probably looked at it. So how can I have a chance here? I know the answer, right? But I'm asking again.
Yeah, well, there's two answers, actually. One is the national builders are like anybody else. They want to, because they're trying to keep their powder dry, so to speak, they always negotiate at a lower number. And because they're looking at so many opportunities, they will go through and cherry pick the ones that are the easiest. This goes back to something else I've said before, Ravi, and you know this as well. As far as land, all the easy land, or most of the easy land, has been developed, not all the good land.
Yeah.
So they're going to go after the things that on the surface offer the most ease, because they don't have the time that you and I have, or that another entity like ours has, to dig down in, find the nuance, find some sort of niche, find an easier way to get something done. The other thing is they're bureaucratic, and they have, like some in our industry, they're in a box. You hear people talking about, what's your buy box? I've had people ask me, for you and I, what's your buy box? Like, I don't have a box. I'll look at anything because I think unconventionally. So I don't want to be pigeonholed into a box, but the builders are, and they have to be, because if not, then they would go chase too many things that are unfortuitous, where you and I can chase those and either accept it or move on. So that's part of it. So even if they're there, and even if they've looked at a deal, not to talk about one of our deals, but our South Carolina deal, all the builders looked at it, but none of them had the good sense to actually negotiate with the owner the way we did. Yeah. And they had a number that was so much lower. They were pitching a number because they didn't see the benefit of it that we saw. They looked at it. They had an engineer lay it out, and the guy came up. Most of them had like 125 lots on it. We have 200. So the difference between them going after something with 125, you and I going after something with 200, makes the numbers better.
Yeah, it's a much more spread, and
exactly.
Okay, so we can say it's that they are not late. I can say they are lazy, but they are looking for the easy one, the one they don't need to negotiate for a few months. They will put a price on it, yes, no, and they move on.
Walk
and they
off.
have so many, and they are getting so many calls all day right?
Yep.
So they don't, they don't need to work hard to find a deal. Deals are coming to them. You just need to cherry pick the one that are easy and ready.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is guys and girls, listen to that point that they are looking for easy one, because this is kind of the goal. The goal here, the play here is to know what they are looking for, right? To know the box, right? Know that they're in the area. And when you look at the land, to be able to know if they will want it once it achieves a certain stage. And when I say a certain stage, that you can show them that it can yield, for example, in the example you said about, for example, our property that we are working on, they were looking at it at 120 lots, you said, and we did engineer within sketch and everything, and we came up with 200 lots. And now that they are looking at it, they say, oh, we want that piece, right?
Yeah.
Now they are, so let's start wrapping up the niche. What is the niche here? What is the strategy here? The strategy here is, you will say,
the strategy to me is to add that value.
Yeah, but how is this? What is the strategy? Let's talk about the process, like in a few sentences. Okay.
Yeah.
The first step is to find the land with potential, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's pretty easy. That is kind of a box. We do have certain things that we want in it, but, and again, I'll use another deal that we looked at. Unfortunately, I wish we could revisit, that didn't have public water and sewer, but it had a favorable zoning ordinance that allowed us to create, instead of 70 lots, allowed us to create 240 because of a little bit of a nuance in the zoning ordinance. So it didn't have one thing that I know we can produce, but it had another that made it even more enticing.
Yeah, but the terms with the stud seller was not favorable to take the risk.
Take the risk, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Let's say he would agree the terms. What are the terms we are trying to achieve when, let's say, we see an opportunity with enough, with an interest? We know that the national builder will want to have product in that area. We know the amount. We read the ordinance, which is the rules that say specific.
The playbook.
It's the playbook.
It's the playbook.
It's the playbook. How many, and you can, once you read it, you know how many. You can guess how many lots you can yield, and it's, again, match their boxes. And now you want to put it on the contract, and I don't want to say the terms here, with enough time to do a due diligence, right? To do a study period. And in the study period, you check the visibility of the project, right? And you talk with the national builders. That's kind of the process in a nutshell. And once you have from the national builder an interest, an LOI, right? Then you can start the process of planning, and they will close, right? Once we have the plan's done. So approved. This is not, that's the niche. It's not buy the land, do and do the retirement, do all the pushing the dirt, and then find a national builder that will buy it, or a custom home, or build it. It's from the beginning, you kind of know where it will end. You already have the sale price. It's like doing I don't want to say flip, but it's like
it is it technically is a flip.
Technically, although the national builders do not like the words flip, I recommend that. But it's a flip when you have the buyer up front, and
it's a value-added flip.
Yeah,
it's a value-added flip.
Land, and you don't actually buy the land before you finish the plans.
Correct.
And that's for me, when I understood this strategy, I was shocked. like it's put in an option, you have enough time to study, have a buyer, right? Have a buyer placed, how much you will pay, and if it makes sense, only when you finish the plans, then you close with them as well.
Simultaneously.
Thank you. So
You're
that's the niche. And it's not a builder that doesn't have the cash. It's a national builder. He always needs product. And that's why I kind of build the story here, because I was very excited to learn about this struggling. So I want to go and ask you about the terms. What are the terms that if somebody wants to do it, needs to get? What it needs to have? What is good to have?
Okay. The best to have, well, first off, and you and I have discussed this, if you're not under contract, you're not in the game.
Yeah.
So once you identify a property that has the potential and you know that it's something you want to chase, regardless of the minutia of the study, you put it under contract as best you can. And in those terms, you are looking to get the best price possible. Our preference is to study it for 120 days. And the reason for that is it takes time. A lot of things take time in that process. Arranging a meeting with a county can sometimes take 30 to 45 days. Finding an engineer and a surveyor that are willing to do the work can take 30 to 45 days. Getting a wetland scientist out, getting a phase 1 environmental done. All of these things takes a certain amount of time and a bit of light capital investment to get you to the point at the end of your study. And what it also does is it shows the national builder that you're courting, that you're serious. Going to the national builder with a piece of property and saying how great it is and how many lots you think you can get on it means nothing. When you and I go to a national builder, we go with a roughly engineered sketch that shows what is potential on the property, and that gets them thinking.
And survey, and we show them survey where the wetlands and everything.
Yes.
Right? So,
we show them the data that we've compiled, that we're serious about this property, and that helps them. That gives them a certain comfort level to understand A, that we're for real, and B, that the property really has potential.
I think third, they want to buy it easy. They don't want to.
Yep. I was going to say, so the whole idea of ours is, I'll go back to the boxes. So the builder has their box. They pass over a piece of property because it doesn't fit their box. What we do is make it fit their box.
Yeah, we show them it's fit their box.
Show them that it fits their box. Exactly.
Easy.
Okay.
That it's easy. That's what I learned.
Well, we make an uneasy piece easy for them.
Yeah, because I remember the first piece that you and I were looking at, it was complicated, and we didn't have enough time to show them that it's easy. So they kind of give us an interest on a verbal, but not.
Do you want to know that 4 of the builders that we talked to wondered what happened to that deal? Now, just in the last week.
Yeah.
My guy at NVR, the guy that was at Pulte, the guy that left D.R. Horton and went to McGinn, and the guy from Mungo all wondered what happened.
Well, it's gone.
I don't know. I might call Alton, see if he actually developed it.
Okay. We'll see. And if yes, we will call Paz.
Yeah.
For sure. What else? So let's go back to the process. So the terms, we want 120 days to study and prepare the information that fits the box for for the builders, right?
Correct. And then if we have to settle, we still don't want to settle, but within our contract terms, we would like enough time to get the plans approved, the construction plans approved, and to have the land disturbance permit ready to be issued, which is when the builder developer or self-developing builder will close.
Yeah.
And generally, I think you and I shoot for 18 months. Well, we start with plan approval. Most attorneys feel that's too open-ended. They want a specific date. So we shift gears and go with 18 months after the contract execution date.
Yeah.
And in lieu of that, we have backed down to 12 months, depending on the deal and depending on the jurisdiction and what we think the timing is, down to 12 months from the execution of the contract.
Okay. So, and the purpose is to have enough spread between the money, the investment for the entitlements for the plans.
Yes.
To the amount between how much we are on the contract and how much the national builder is on the contract with us.
Right.
How about deposits? How much deposits is it going to be released? Let's tackle that too.
Yeah, well, we try not to release them. Your preference is always to leave them in escrow and have them conveyed at settlement. But again, there comes a time, if you need to request an extension, mostly to settlement, certainly not an extension of the study. But if it was you needed to request an extension of settlement, then you may release deposits to the seller at that point, because it's kind of irrelevant. They're already at risk. So you're using it as a negotiating tool. I think you and I, the deposits, I don't want to say they're irrelevant. I don't necessarily use 1% or 2% of the contract value type lever for that. It's more of what seems A, to be a fair number, B, to be a number that when added to the amount of money you're going to risk doing the final engineering, which can run, depending on the size of the deal, could run several $100,000. So technically that's, in my opinion, part of the deposit. So you're not going to put up $200,000 and then spend another $200,000 to engineer it. And that's part of the negotiation process, whether it be with a seller or seller's counsel, so that they understand that during the period that starts after your study period ends until you're ready to settle, that as a real estate investor, you're going to be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the seller's property. And if for some reason the deal falls apart, they get all of that. So basically, you're giving them ready to build plans if for some reason you can't settle, whether it's market based or economy based or anything. So you're convincing the seller that they're coming out ahead. Either they settle and get their money, or something goes wrong and they get the deposit plus hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of engineering work.
Okay, let's talk about the investments here. So let's say a deal with let's say 200 lots. Let's take our South Carolina.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We have it for, I don't know if I can talk numbers now, but let's talk about, let's sum up a number. A deal is worth, it's under contract for $1 million, right? And let's say that there is 200 lots over there that you can build, okay?
Yep.
I mean, the deposit for $1 million going to be between 20 probably to 30, or maybe some 15 to 30 but it will need to be 5 or 10 at the beginning,
yeah.
then after study period, another one, right? That's an investment that you need to put, and that's not really in risk until the study period is done. But in the study period, what is more important that is risky is that you need to pay for survey and wetland delineation, where you mark where the wetland, and that cost. And
phase one environmental, yeah,
and that cost, and that doesn't go back. That's a risk. The reason I'm saying it because people want to do that, but they gotta know the risk in doing it. You can risk anywhere from 50 to 100, maybe 150, depends on the size of the deal. And it's not coming back. And that's the reason on our deals when we haven't started raising funds, but once we raise, we already invested the money that is risk before the survey, the wetland, and all of that, because we don't want to raise that as a risk. We don't want to take, we don't want to invest, I don't want to say but we don't want to put a risk investors' money. That's kind of and people need to know that, because it's not get rich fast. It's very risky, especially at the beginning, where you need to invest money and it might not come back. 50,000, 100,000. It's not small cash. But the good news, right, is once you have a builder and he will put you an LOI, and then you go to a contract with him, he will put deposit too, right?
They'll post 10% of their contract.
Yeah, 10%, which sometimes it's more than a little bit more or a little bit less than how much it will cost to entitle the to entitle the land, right?
Right.
So it's very important to say that as a strategy. I want to ask a few more questions, and then we will start looking at people's questions.
Cool.
How do I find a civil engineer? How do I know? Because one of the things, right? I have you, so you are my hack, but right. But one of the things is to find the right civil engineer to work with, right? How do I interview a civil engineer and I know that this is the firm that I should work with? Because I remember at the beginning I was calculating with civil engineers and I didn't know how to talk with them, what to ask them. It's kind of a question.
It is. I'll be honest. It is difficult because engineers, especially if you're a novice, engineers are used to talking to. They're very most engineers. I'm probably the most unconventional engineer you'll ever meet.
I know.
Most engineers are they're strict disciplinarians. They're rigid in their thoughts. They are used to talking to people who are educated in this arena, know what they want, know how to ask, and they're not humorous folks on a whole, and they tend to I don't look past or look over someone who's not asking the questions in an appropriate direction or an appropriate manner. So it can be very difficult to find an engineer, because if you can't verbalize exactly what you need them for and exactly what the process you're shooting for is, and or have any knowledge of what the underlying costs are, then it can be extremely difficult.
But yeah, okay. But you know me, no or impossible, it's not an answer.
Yeah, I didn't say it was no or impossible. I just said it can be difficult.
Or
So
difficult. I don't care about difficult.
you got to, I mean, you got to keep trying, but you find them, you know, the same way I do for us. I mean, I don't know civil engineers. This is a big country over here. I don't know if you guys knew that. And Ravi, you know, we're working in like 4 or 5 different states, and each state is like its own little country. And because they all have their own, like for engineers, they all have their own rules for how you're licensed and how you conduct yourself. So in every jurisdiction, we're basically trying to I got to find an engineer that we can work with. So we go through it every single time. It's the same interview process. The best thing I can advise is, and you're learning because you're on the call with us with me each time. So you hear me speaking to them, and eventually you'll pick up the language, the lingo, the nuance that will help you through talking with them to establish it. But the bottom line is, it's also about personalities. If you call to talk to the engineer, and the engineer is non-committal or gruff or not interested, then and you feel that as you're gauging personality, then it's going to be a hard time working with them. At the end of the day, when I select an engineer for us, I go with someone that I think the personality works, because I don't want to run headlong into somebody who doesn't want to do something the way I want it done. Yeah. So it's a learning experience. It's just it takes time, but you can't give up, of course.
So,
but it's not easy.
One of the things that I've seen is checking the jurisdiction where you work. You can ask them who are the civil engineers, or can find who are the civil engineers that are being submitting application. No.
Nope. Most some of the very rural jurisdictions may, but in the sophisticated ones, it's actually a conflict, because if one engineer heard that you got their name from the county in lieu of 10 others, then we live in it sucks. We live in a very litigious society here in the States. And the engineers would sue the county if the county was giving out information preferential one engineer to another over another.
So how do you know who to talk with? How do you find
you don't.
this?
You
so
don't.
How do you find this?
You basically go online.
How do you go?
Same way I do it. I go online. I Google or whatever one of the other search engines is. Civil engineers in X jurisdiction, or environmental engineers in this jurisdiction, and then I go through them. I open their websites. I look and see what they do, where they, what they've done. I read their mission statement to see if it's even anywhere near, what I want to be involved with. And then I call. And I'll be honest, if I call and I can't get to the director of engineering or speak with someone, or it's a session on the phone where I get grilled by the receptionist, I'll leave my name, and I'll if they call me back, great, but I move on immediately.
Okay.
So it really is just you start and you continue to pursue until you find someone whose personality meshes with yours. Okay. If you're a novice, it may be an engineer like me. If a novice called and they want to help you, they understand that. There again, it's personalities. It's like anything else. There are people who are problem solvers, and there are people who are problem finders.
Yeah.
So on the phone, you want to find the problem solver. You want to find the person who's speaking with you knows that you're a novice, maybe knows that you don't know everything you should, and who will help you through it. That's how you and I met. I saw you asking a question online that I knew wasn't the question you really wanted to answer, that you were searching.
It was an obvious question.
It was.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was more to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's how I am. And there must be other people out there like that would field a question like that, and rather than, in the back of their mind go, this person's a novice, I don't have time for this, I'm so busy, I can't be bothered, versus there's going to be somebody who goes, wow, I think I can help this person. There's something interesting here. I can jump in and be of benefit.
Okay. Next question is, how do I find the national builders? How do I find who to talk with the national builders?
The national builders are fun. So the national builders are, honestly, it's the same way in a fashion. As long as you ask the right question when you call. When I call, I always say, I'd like to speak with, I'll preface this in several ways. Sometimes I don't have a connection in a particular jurisdiction. And if I can't get to, or I have, because, I have connections with the builders in many different jurisdictions. But I've called at times and said, hey, maybe to Dan Ryan Builders or NVR. So who is the director of acquisitions in this, this market? And I've had the guys that I work with, in different markets go, I don't know. And some will say, I don't know, but I do know this person, so I'll connect you with an email or something else. So I always try and start with somebody I already know and ask them to refer me to someone. And 9 times out of 10, they will send out an email with with an introduction in it. Like, hey, this is Dave Hansen. He and I are working on these 3 deals over here. He seems to have a project in your market. It might be a good fit. It might not. Why don't you guys get together?
Okay, but if I'm a novice guy, I don't know how do I find the contact?
Okay, so all of the builders, once again, the internet is a phenomenal tool. All of the builders have division offices. Now, here's where you got to be careful. If you Google or whatever search engine, D.R. Horton in Charlotte, North Carolina, let's say, right? The first thing that's going to come up are all of their communities. And there's going to be phone numbers to those communities. The people in those communities have no idea who the land acquisition person is at all. They're salespeople. They're selling homes in a community. So what you can do, like I'll use Horton as an example. You can Google D.R. Horton division offices.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll bring up the division office for every market in the U.S. with a phone number. You can call there, ask for whatever the division is, in the division office is in the area you're working in, call there, ask for the land acquisition manager.
Okay, and that's how you reach out to him.
That's one way that I've reached out. Yeah, in chasing smaller nationals where I don't have contacts, yeah, I'll find a division headquarters office and call there. Because again, if you call the community offices where they're building, those folks aren't going to know anything. But if you call a division headquarters, the secretary there is going to know who the land acquisition manager is for whatever, and they could be, fractured down from a big division headquarters into smaller satellites, guys that handle different areas of that market.
Okay. I want to see the question that people ask about, and you can start writing a question. I think it's how do you say, it makes sense the process. I think we went through most of the process and how to start looking for that. I wanna see some question people had at the beginning that I kind of ignored for a second. What considered to be a considerable distance between houses to facilities like shops?
Every jurisdiction is going to be different, and every me, I think for you and I, when I look at things, I look inside 10 miles.
Okay.
I don't know that I would go radiate out any further than 10 miles. That just seems like a good number. I'd prefer to be well within that, but I think 10 miles is probably a reasonable distance to take.
Okay. Another question is, can we sell to a builder without doing anything? Like as is, put it on a contract and sell to a builder?
Maybe. Again, if you are, if you have something, first off, the price, I mean, if you're talking about just a straight flip or wholesale kind of thing, sure. I mean, they do the same thing. If the deal the deal would have to be silly for them to close that fast.
Yeah, they need to see that there is utilities inside, connection, everything.
Yeah, I think it's near on impossible, but it's improbable, but not impossible.
Unless it's a finished lot.
A finished lot, most of them will take all day long. If you had 15 finished lots, they'll take that. If you had if you have something adjacent to an existing subdivision, yeah, I do know. I worked on a deal in Virginia with Horton, and for finished lots, even though they weren't doing anything real close by, they can close in 30 days on finished lots.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. So when you buy a land and there is connection on the, how do you say, on the borders, right, for utilities and water, you gotta, when you do the land development, you push the dirt, then you need to put the road with all the utilities, right?
Yes.
And you need to get the permits. What are the permits? What are the names of the permits?
Well, they're all going to be different, and depends. And again, it depends on the jurisdiction. If I were in Northern Virginia, you would have a grading permit. You would have an entrance connection permit to Virginia Department of Transportation because they own all of the public roads. Even inside of a jurisdiction, it's their road. And in order to connect a new road to one of their existing roads, you need a permit. There is there's a grading permit. The utilities are generally owned and operated by a different entity than, Loudoun County does not own Loudoun Water, which is the water and sewer department. They are their own. So you need a permit from the utility department to connect and extend their facilities.
Yeah.
You need a grading permit. And then you have an array of inspections that take place that allow you to proceed to different phases of the development itself, from grading to the installation of utilities to finishes. Yeah.
Is that in the construction plan?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, there is a long question here, but I will try to summarize it. Could you advise on what is the best approach to drafting a letter to the municipality to request a permitting? How does it work?
It doesn't work that way, actually. The process of again, the process starts with either a preliminary plan or some other type of document. In some, again, I'll use, well, we're doing it right now, and so I can give you the several differences. So in Virginia, in Loudoun County, they have a pre-application conference, is what they call it. And you request that. There's an online application. You fill it out. You submit your plan with the online application, and then they set up a meeting date, and you go in and you sit down with the various referral agencies that are part of the county or the state government. So you'll have the Department of Natural Resources, Transportation, Planning and Zoning. You'll have the state Department of Transportation there, and they'll look at your plan while you're in the room, and they'll make comments and offer suggestions about your plan. Very similar to the DRC meeting that we're going to have in Augusta, or the DRM that we're going to have in Columbia.
Different names for different jurisdictions.
For the same thing.
But just
following those meetings, they will give you a list of comments, a list of modifications to make. Then your civil engineer will prepare the necessary plans, and all of those will be submitted back to the jurisdiction for review. Most jurisdictions have time limits on the amount of time that they can review something. It can be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Then you will get a letter from the jurisdiction with all the comments, all the changes, everything that they find in your plan that don't meet either their standards manual or their design requirements or personal preference, and they will comment on those. Your engineer replies to those, resubmits it, and it goes through the process again. Generally, the time from initial submission to approval on a set of plans is anywhere between 6 and 18 months, depending on where you are in the country and how long they have in-house, how long it takes with your private engineer to respond to comments, make the modifications to the plans, and get stuff resubmitted.
Yeah, I wanna say that you can read in their zoning department in every county and city what is the steps for submission, and you can.
Yeah, I would say there are three documents that I recommend that everyone read: the zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, which sometimes they're two different code books, sometimes they're merged, and then finally, almost all jurisdictions have some call it a facility standards manual, an FSM. Prince William County has a DCSM, which is design construction standards manual, and what that contains is what a plan set has to have to be. It has checklists, what it has to have to be acceptable, what are the minimum standards that your engineer is going to have to apply to the stand, and again, whether you understand it or not, it's good to read it so you have even a brief understanding of what's in there, so you'll know, because all of it takes time.
Yeah. That's okay. Next question. What are the DD you do when you put a land under contract? What do you do in the study period? Let's say it's in a sentence. So it's we need to check the wetland, topography, of course, if needed.
Wetland, floodplain, topography, environmental, any other environmental restrictions or impacts, zoning, nuances in the zoning ordinance that may allow for an increase in density, desirability from any number of factors, whether it be a desirable location for the builders, it may be a desirable location for commercial, depending on the type of road frontage you have, and then last but certainly not least is does the price make sense?
Yeah, and that's when you when you get offers from national builders. You want to get the view, so you can see that there is interest and also what the price range they are looking to get. And another question, because I see this question, although we talked about it. So the way we do it, it's about the question is about the process. The process is putting the land under contract. It's an option to buy it with a 120 days study period, where in the study period we just said what we are doing, what we are checking, and also lining up, let's say, getting offers from, we want to get an offers from the builders, the national builders, and only when, and then start doing all the plans and close only when that's preferable, only when we have the final plan approvals, and then the builder will close also having the final plan approvals. And one more thing to say that we didn't say, they will pay per lot. We pay the seller, we have a one price, but the national builders will give us an offer per lot. Meaning once we achieve the final plan, we will have amount of lots and they will pay per lot. Meaning if we schedule 200 lots and eventually we have 190, they will pay an amount for, say, let's say 15,000 per lot. It's very important. That's why you need to have enough spread. And we already dropped like 2 or 3 deals like that the spread was not too too short, that if the amount of lots will go down too much or something, it will be too low.
Right.
So the question is, why the national builder will not buy it directly from the seller? We said that because they want it easy. They need to see that. They need to see the survey. They need to see the wetland. They want to see the sketch. They want to see something that you have done already, or the price should be very, very low. That's
right.
Kind of for that. I have more question in the QA. How do you find the ordinance? So just type, very easy, type the jurisdiction, zoning ordinance, and you will find it.
Sometimes you actually have to call the zoning department and ask them to send you a PDF of their ordinance.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's a different question. If I have a house that sits on 7 acres and I want to split the property to sell each one of them separately, right? It's to submit. It's like a subdividing. It's how do you call it? Like minimum subdividing, something like that. There's a name for that. So
minor subdivision.
Thank you. So minor subdivision. Who does it need to approach to in order to do that?
You know what? Well, it depends. If in most jurisdictions, minor subdivisions can be done by a surveyor.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to read the zoning ordinance, right?
Well, no. Again, if you've got enough frontage to manage it, and you don't need to engineer any roads or sewer extensions or anything like that, then, imagine that you had your 7 acres, and it is the perfect depth, and it's got all the frontage you need for 7 lots. So the utilities are in the road, and all you would have to do is hire a surveyor. He would do a boundary, and then he would create your 7 lots. And then you can sell the individual lots, because then the builder will hook to the water and sewer that are already in the, in the right of way.
So it needs to have enough frontage.
It does. Now,
for each one of them.
Yeah. Now imagine that your 7 acres is it's rectangular. It has minimal frontage on the main road, and you have to build a road into the property. In that case, you'd need an engineer, because the surveyor can't do civil engineering design.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, though, is the engineer can do the final plat that creates the lots. He doesn't need a surveyor for that.
Got it.
So again, it depends on the condition, the shape of the ground, and the requirements within the ordinance and the subdivision code.
Okay. There is 2 more questions, and you have more questions. That is the time. If you watch the recording, then you can reply some comments, and we will answer later. How do you pick an area? Everywhere. Jurisdiction.
I don't. I hope they pick me.
Yeah, I think it's you can do it almost everywhere.
You can. It doesn't.
Everywhere there is enough demand for new houses that you can almost do it everywhere. You just need to see. For my opinion, just check that there is enough national builders that are building in the area, and that's it.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, I gave you the example. Scranton, Pennsylvania is a big city, but there are no national builders building anywhere, not in Scranton or anywhere near it.
Yeah.
It's, it's an old steel town that hasn't figured out how to regentrify itself. So they're not there because there was no, they didn't see enough growth. So, if you're looking in the States right now, Southeast, Texas, the South overall, people here are trying to get away from the cold weather and gravitating to the, sunshine.
Yeah, but we looked at Colorado, which is not South.
Yeah. But Colorado is interesting in the sense that it is essentially halfway across the U.S. and you have the continental divide. So, it's an interesting split point in the U.S. as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Last question. Will you sell directly to investors that want to build by themselves, that want to do a custom? I think it will be too small.
Yeah, I'll sell to anybody who wants to pay what we're asking.
Yeah, well, usually it's not going to be. It's going to be national because, and if it's an investor, it's probably too small. So, all right. I think we covered it. Was an amazing interview. I really like it, but of course, I always enjoy talking with you, Dave.
Yeah, same here. No, that was phenomenal. I hopefully you get good feedback, and let everybody know. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. You know that.
Yeah.
Much to your dismay sometimes.
All right. Yeah, people say that it was really good in Hebrew. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. This was awesome. What a thrill.
Yeah,
I've got my first podcast under my belt now.
Yes, you see, and also you had questions. You like when there are questions. So
I do. I love questions. That's good.
So you like it.
Well, that means people are engaged and interested. So that means a lot.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, Dave.
Yeah. See you guys. See everyone. Thank you. All right, Raf.
Bye-bye.
Bye, my friend. Bye.